The predator doesn't move fast. It stalks. And that terrifying patience wasn't a creative choice at first. It was gravity. The final predator suit weighed over 100 pounds, just the costume itself before factoring in jungle heat or exhaustion. Even a 7'2" walking skyscraper like Kevin Peter Hall needed bungee cables rigged to his frame just to move properly. Without them, walking was barely manageable and running was completely off the table. That limitation, though, accidentally solved the movie's biggest problem. The slower Hall moved, the scarier the predator became. Inside the mask, visibility was almost non-existent. Hall memorized his paths before each take and trusted everyone else to stay out of the way. Breathing wasn't much better. The predator head trapped heat like an oven, and the Mexican jungle gleefully handled the rest. The team installed a custom cooling suit underneath that circulated cold water, but even then, Hall could only stay in the costume for about 2 hours before it became genuinely dangerous. Between takes, crew members would rush in, pop the head off, and let him breathe. The most intimidating creature in the movie spent half its time on set looking like a sweaty guy gasping for air next to a craft services table. And yet all of that misery paid off beautifully. Turns out the scariest monsters aren't fast, they're inevitable. Before Predator became one of the most terrifying movie monsters ever put on screen, it almost killed the movie stone dead. The first version of the alien was so bad that when test footage came back, the studio panicked. According to Arnold Schwarzenegger, it looked like a guy in a lizard suit with the head of a duck, which is not what you want stalking elite commandos through the jungle. That's what you want chasing tourists at a low-budget theme park. The original creature was designed by Boss Film Studios and made to be agile and insect-like. But when the dailies reached Fox executives, the reaction was immediate. The monster wasn't scary, it was unintentionally funny. So the unthinkable happened. Production stopped. Filming was halted for weeks while the entire creature was scrapped and redesigned from the ground up. The production was suddenly burning money with nothing to show for it except a very expensive rubber disaster. That's when Stan Winston came aboard and rebuilt the Predator from scratch, casting the 7'2" Kevin Peter Hall to give it real physical dominance. The redesign cost roughly $1.5 million, twice what the failed suit cost, but it saved the film. The Predator finally looked alien, powerful, and intelligent, like something that could dismantle a squad of commandos without breaking a sweat. Long before he became the muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude Van Damme almost became one of the most famous movie monsters of all time. The key word there is almost. In 1986, Van Damme was hungry and still looking for his big break, so when he was offered a role in Predator, he thought he'd finally made it. There was just one small misunderstanding. He thought he was playing a martial arts alien who would fight Schwarzenegger. What he actually signed up for was sweating inside a rubber nightmare while being invisible. Van Damme couldn't fight the way he wanted, couldn't see through the mask, and spent most of his time trying not to fall over. He wanted spin kicks, the filmmakers wanted silent stalking. It was a mismatch from the start. What happened next depends on which version of the story you believe. Van Damme has said he grew frustrated and left on his own terms. Some production sources say he was let go after tensions boiled over. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle of a Mexican jungle covered in sweat and regret. But either way, the role needed a new body, and fast. Enter Kevin Peter Hall. Hall's sheer size and graceful movement gave the creature an otherworldly presence that finally made it believable as a superior hunter. He even doubled as the helicopter pilot in the final rescue scene, hiding in plain sight the whole time. Van Damme went on to superstardom with Bloodsport and Kickboxer. The Predator went on to become a legend, and somewhere in the middle there's a rubber suit full of bad decisions connecting them both. One of the most recognizable monster faces in movie history wasn't born in a boardroom or a months-long design meeting. It was born on an airplane. Winston had just come off another little sci-fi project called Aliens. He and its director, James Cameron, were flying to Japan together for a press tour when Winston started sketching ideas for the new Predator design mid-flight. Cameron leaned over, flipped through the drawings, and casually dropped what would become one of the most consequential sentences in creature design history. "You know, I've always wanted to see something with mandibles." An offhand comment at 30,000 feet that rewired an entire franchise. Winston grabbed the idea and started sketching insect-like mouthparts folding out from the creature's face. The predator could still be humanoid while hiding something deeply not human underneath, a face that looked normal enough until it opened. That single design choice became the predator's defining feature. The mandibles allowed it to hiss, click, flare, and rage, and communicate without ever speaking a word, turning an instantly recognizable mouth into the thing that separated this creature from every other movie monster on the shelf. Predator looks like a movie where a bunch of guys get hunted in the jungle. What it actually was a movie where the jungle hunted the entire production crew. Filming took place in the Mexican jungle, and from almost day one, everything went horribly, horribly wrong. The heat was relentless, the terrain was brutal, and then the real killer showed up. The water. A faulty purification system at the crew's hotel triggered a massive outbreak of traveler's diarrhea that ripped through the production like an invisible enemy, fitting considering the movie they were making. Cast and crew dropped one by one. Not "I don't feel great" sick, full-on production-stopping, dignity-destroying sick. Director John McTiernan responded by cutting out local food entirely. He imported crackers and bottled drinks that became his only diet. And it worked. He avoided the illness. He also dropped about 25 pounds and looked like a man slowly evaporating under studio pressure. But he avoided the illness. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger, who seemed genetically engineered to survive anything, wasn't immune. Between the non-stop physical demands, night shoots in freezing water, and day shoots in triple-digit heat, Arnold also lost around 25 pounds. The predator wasn't the only thing hunting people in that jungle. Predator already had one unstoppable hunter on screen. Behind the scenes, it had another. Everyone was quietly keeping an eye on Sonny Landham, who played the stone-cold tracker Billy. Landham brought a level of intensity to the set that made people nervous, so the studio did something almost unheard of. They hired a full-time bodyguard for Landham, not to protect him, but to protect everyone else. This wasn't a creative decision, it came straight from the insurance company. Landham had a reputation for being volatile, unpredictable, and occasionally violent, so for the entire shoot, a massive 6'8" bodyguard shadowed Landham all the clock. His sole job was to make sure Landham didn't explode and take someone with him. And here's the strange twist. On Predator, Landham was reportedly completely professional. The bodyguard never actually had to step in, but the aura was real. Crew members described him as intimidating even when he wasn't doing anything. He allegedly refused protective padding during fight scenes, insisting that real men don't need fake armor. At one point, he reportedly threw a machete into a tree hard enough to make people rethink standing by. So yeah, the bodyguard stayed. Jesse Ventura's minigun didn't just dominate the jungle, it broke the laws of filmmaking. When Ventura showed up as Blaine with his lovingly named M134 minigun, all painless, the weapon did exactly what it was designed to do: fire at a completely insane rate. In real military configuration, that gun spits out roughly 6,000 rounds per minute, which sounds impressive until you try to film it, because on camera, the barrels didn't spin. They looked frozen, sometimes even spinning backward. Classic stroboscopic effect, the same reason wagon wheels in old westerns do weird things. The gun was literally too fast for 24 frames per second, so the production had to make the gun weaker so it would look stronger. The firing rate was reduced to about 1/3 of its speed using a special motor, still absurdly fast, but slow enough that the camera could actually see the barrels rotate, creating that hypnotic blur audiences expected from the biggest gun in cinema history. The Predator's glowing green blood looks like some cutting-edge alien science, but in reality it was closer to a late-night science fair with worse hygiene. There was nothing high-tech about it. The effects team cracked open glow sticks, dumped the glowing liquid into a bucket, and mixed it with KY jelly. The glow stick fluid gave the blood its eerie neon shine. The KY jelly gave it thickness so it clung, stretched, and oozed instead of running like water. Together, they created something that looked genuinely alien, especially against the dark jungle floor. Of course, there was a catch. Glow stick liquid doesn't last long once exposed to air. The glow faded fast, which meant the effects team had to mix fresh batches constantly, every single take, over and over. And then there was the part absolutely nobody envies. Kevin Peter Hall, the man inside the Predator suit, had to hold the mixture in his mouth and spit it out to simulate the creature bleeding. Non-toxic and technically safe, and apparently absolutely disgusting. The man committed to the role in ways that should qualify for hazard pay. The Predator's cloaking effect was basically a guy in a fire truck red bodysuit wandering around the jungle like he'd taken a wrong turn at a superhero audition. The logic was simple and kind of brilliant. In a lush Mexican jungle that's nothing but green, brown, and misery, the one color you'll never see in nature is bright red. So the effects team dressed the Predator performer head to toe in red, filmed the scene, and gave the lab something easy to isolate without accidentally erasing half the rainforest. That red silhouette became the Predator's outline. Then came the real trick. They shot every scene twice, once with the red-suited Predator stomping around, then again with no actor at all, capturing a clean shot of the empty jungle background. In post-production, the effects team took that clean background plate, optically shrank it down, and re-photographed it into the red-suited matte frame by frame. Squeezing a full-sized background into a smaller space meant the image warped and bent inside the Predator shape, like light passing through rippling water. That distortion was the invisibility, and it ended up way creepier than full transparency would have been. The shimmer made audiences lean forward instead of looking away, the exact opposite of what most movie monsters accomplish. Predator is a movie about elite commandos getting hunted in the jungle, and right in the middle of all that mud, sweat, and alien paranoia, Arnold Schwarzenegger took a time out to get married. During production in 1986, Arnold temporarily left the jungles of Mexico, flew to Massachusetts, and married Maria Shriver on April 26th. The man treated his own wedding like a lunch break: fly out, get married, fly back, fight alien. Arnold was gone only a few days before returning to finish the film, and in true 80s action hero fashion, he didn't even take a real honeymoon. Instead, he brought his new wife back to the Predator set. The honeymoon was in the same Mexican jungle where everyone had diarrhea. The monster suit weighed about 120 pounds, and the cast was waking up at 4 a.m. to lift weights out of spite. Romance at its finest, everybody. Naturally, the crew welcomed her the only way they knew how. They filled Arnold and Maria's hotel bathtub with frogs, so when she tried to take a relaxing shower, she was greeted by a live amphibian jump scare instead. Welcome to the jungle. Now, most people get champagne and a sunset for their honeymoon. Maria Shriver got jungle humidity, a crew running on crackers and bottled water, and a bathtub full of uninvited wildlife. Meanwhile, Arnold was back on set the next morning, covered in mud, firing blanks at a guy in a rubber suit. Only Arnold Schwarzenegger could treat a wedding like a pit stop and a movie set like a honeymoon resort, and somehow make both of them work.